We're ready to go. We are live. Hello, my ex-Phillies. No music today. I'm so sorry. I'll find some nice X-Files theme music for next week. We are starting season 3. What's up, Peter?
Hey, hi everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy season 3.
Yes, and thanks everybody for watching so far. We love our little group of ex-Phillies who follow us and who enjoy a little bit of X-Files action. It's incredible. We're moving right along because it seems like this insurmountable amount of episodes when you break it down. You're like, oh shit, we got to do 10 seasons of this crap. But time's flying by, and every season gets better. And
Yeah.
that's the trend for the X Files up until basically when it all went off the air, which those last 2 seasons were a little shaky. But I enjoy pretty much everything up to season 7, and I like the season 8. But I'll see if I still like it as much as I did when I rewatched it a few years back. But season 3 is very solid. What do you think so far, season 3,
Oh,
compared to
yeah.
2?
Yeah, season 3 is definitely high level. I'm almost done it now, actually. I just watched episode 21 before we went on the air. And last night I watched the classic Josie Chung's Outer Space episode. And yeah, I'm coming across a lot of episodes that I was really looking forward to when we started this, and I thought a lot of them came later, and it's like, oh wow, we get this now. So yeah, really nice mix of mythology, monster of the week, and humor episodes. It's just hits all the right notes at the right time.
Yeah, that's what surprised me too, Pete. It's funny you said that because some of these episodes I thought were way later in the series. I was like, oh wait, this is now? Like even I think one we're gonna see tonight, which is the Clive. Is that tonight or is it the next week? The one with the comedian Clyde Berkman's with Peter Boyle. You know,
Oh yeah,
Clyde
yeah, yeah.
Berkman. I thought that was like a season 4, season 5 episode. It's like, oh no, it's right at the start of season 1. And also, Too Shy surprised me too, which is the dude that likes the chubby chicks, which we'll talk about
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah.
So I thought that was later on, because I know that's one that I liked a lot. So I'm surprised by how many are in season 3 and how many I forgot. Now I understand why people rewatch shows, man, because you think you remember this stuff. And like I've said many times on this podcast, I did a rewatch of the whole series to prep for season 10. And that wasn't that long ago. And I swear to God, I don't remember some of these episodes. I'm like, what? This was an episode? It's like completely blank slate. I don't know what's going to happen. And it's not because they're bad and I just kind of like was doing other things while watching it. It's just it's a lot of TV, man. It's a lot of stuff. I
Yeah.
guess the brain can't hold it all in. So I get why people just go back and rewatch, which begs the question of you guys watching is why do you go back and rewatch the X Files? What draws you back? Is it the relationship with Mulder and Scully? Is it the mythology, the conspiracy? Is it just the horror aspects? Let us know in the comments. Now, we're going to get going because it is late. And we're going to begin with, although I don't think it's 8 p.m. Eastern time anymore in America because we had daylight saving time, so I might have to change that time. Well, just a little bit of news. We didn't have news last week, but I did read something here about David Duchovny to star in series adaptation of his Truly Like Lightning book in works at Showtime with the Peanut Butter Falcon filmmakers. So the Californication star executive producer David Duchovny is returning to Showtime for a potential new series based on his recently published novel, Truly Like Lightning. So I guess this novel got some really good repercussion. I know he wants to be thought of as a writer. I saw that in an interview, so I have no clue what this novel's about. But I'd be interested in seeing him on
Yeah,
TV
it's
doing
on my
something that
reading
little.
list actually. I should
Are you reading
probably
it?
get to it some. No, no, it's on
Oh,
my reading list. I have
okay.
quite a long one, but yeah, I should get to it probably by.
Look at that advertising for StreamYard Broadcast Studio on the thing. All right, I'll post it out. Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess I'll try to check it out. There's nothing particularly interesting about the synopsis to it, but we will see. So good luck with that, because it'd be good to see David back on TV as something other than Fox Mulder. But let's get to it. Episode 1, The Blessing Way. I'm not sure if I lost Pete or not. Are you there, Pete?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, good. Um, well, this is the first episode of the season, and it's a continuation of last season's episode, where Anasazi, I think it was called,
Yeah,
where Mulder was inside of a train, right? Of a train car that was buried in the
yeah,
desert, and then the cigarette smoking man shows up, and he's like, "Burn it!" And inside that train, apparently there were some alien-looking things, and he burned it all with Mulder inside. And The Blessing Way is the first episode of the third season of The X Files. It premiered on September 22nd, 1995. It was written by series creator Chris Carter, directed by R.W. Goodwin, and helped explore the series' mythology arc. It's a part two of a three-part storyline, which will conclude with the next episode, Paperclip. And quick synopsis here is that as Navajo Indians try to save Mulder from death, Scully comes to terms with her assumption that he has already died and is warned that her own life is in danger. What do you think of this one, Pete?
yeah. It was a pretty worthy season premiere. It ended the previous season ended on a major cliffhanger, and they didn't really fall into the trap of just resolving things in the first 10 minutes and moving on. Quite the contrary. About the only thing they resolved was the cliffhanger, but then this episode ends on a cliffhanger of its own. So not only does it not resolve everything nice and neatly right away, but the overall story is left unresolved, and we're left with like, oh my god, like there's still more. So yeah, I thought it was well executed in that way, because that's a trap that a lot of series that have season cliffhangers tend to fall into. The cliffhanger is just there to get you back for the season premiere next season, and
Mm,
here it's like, no, 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 there's a lot more to this. So
way
yes,
more.
I like the fact that things were not nice and neatly resolved, but it just continued the story in a pretty natural way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I did like that the story turned out bigger than what it was.
Mm-hmm.
I like the next episode a little bit more. We'll talk about that. So, one question that a lot of people have about this episode is how exactly did Mulder get out of that train car? They give this kind of weird explanation about how there's tunnels underground and this, that, and the third, but it's never really explained. I do like that there's more of the syndicate. Okay, we get the well
Yeah.
groomed man
Yes.
and the Italian dude whose name I forgot now. They all have these little nicknames, but I like the Italian dude because he always sounds hungry. Um, but the syndicate is probably one of my favorite. It's just my favorite aspect of the show. As they grew and grew and grew, even more. Well, no, cigarette smoking man is like the main one, but still, it's pretty
Yeah.
kind of cool. Um, I forgot what his name is. Oh, there we go. We have No, I'll find out. I'll find out what his. I just always call him the Italian dude, the hungry dude. Um, the dude knows Mulder's name. Oh, this is kind of annoying. The Native American, you know,
Yes.
yeah, it just he got a little bit annoying. Albert Hosteen, okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I just couldn't stand how he kept saying the FBI man, the FBI man, and this is so Chris Carter, just like stereotyping. I'm sounding like the guys from that Vulture article now, or whatever. You know, stereotyping what these Native Americans are supposed to be like. They can't speak in full intelligent sentences. You know, so it's like the Canadian man is on tonight with us. It's like, come on, guys. Like, he has a name. It's Peter, and you know, Mulder has a name, and then he does the same thing with Scully after a while. She's the FBI woman. Um, so I thought it was a sort of what I thought was really boring about this episode was Mulder's deaths, you know, quote unquote. It's kind of like Scully's death. It's like a redux where he's just lying in bed the whole episode, and then you get this vision of the afterworld.
Right.
And I just thought Scully's was done more artistically, a little bit. It was a little bit more subtle, you know, the that whole imagery of, you know, her with the boat, you know, tethered to the dock, you know, and then she lets go of the rope. But Mulder, it just went into these monologues, you know, and I wrote here in my notes, it's Chris Carter stroking his dick with everyone speaking pseudo Shakespearean. Like everybody all of a sudden got into this whole, and if you do not know the path that you must take, you must this. And I'm like, what the hell? Like that was boring for me. Skinner was being a real jerk, but then we find out that it was the cigarette smoking man who was pulling the strings. Uh, Scully goes to regressive hypnosis at the behest of her hippie sister, which I thought was a really cool scene there. And you saw that Scully wasn't prepared to go into her memories, and you get the sense that why she doesn't believe it isn't just because there isn't evidence, but because part of her is scared of what she's going to find out what she believes. So I thought that that was a very cool character development moment for Scully. So overall, oh, and Scully's sister gets killed this episode, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's like at least three other big things that happen in this
Yeah.
besides resolving Mulder's fate. First of all, Scully finds the chip in her neck, which turns
Oh
out to be
yes.
a major plot. That's why she goes into hypnotherapy, because she confesses to her sister that she found this metal chip in her neck, and her sister's like, "This could be serious. You need to find out what the fuck happened to you," but she can't deal with it. Plus, she's also pretty much already given up on Mulder. She's convinced that Mulder is dead, and she doesn't actually find out he's not in this episode. She goes the whole episode believing Mulder is already dead, and she pretty much has to break it to Mulder's mom at his dad's funeral. So poor Mrs.
Yeah, the
Mulder.
dad.
She's
Yeah.
at the funeral of her husband, and then Scully's got to break it to her that her son's probably dead. And then, yes, as if Krychek wasn't a big enough bastard for killing Mulder's father in the previous episode, he and his buddy kill Scully's sister in a case of mistaken identity, because they're supposed to whack Scully, but what's her face Melissa is in her apartment, and they shoot her instead. Meanwhile, Scully has been warned by the well-groomed man that somebody she trusts is going to be sent to kill her. And the episode culminates in Skinner coming to her apartment, which makes her think, aha, this is the guy. And the episode ends with them holding guns on each other. So pretty good
Yes.
culmination to all the different stories they had going on in just this one 45-minute episode.
They packed a lot in. By the way, the name of that syndicate member is the first elder, but he's also known
Right.
as the well-fed man. or the Italian man. So I wasn't too far off because I kept calling him Italian man. So he was a high-ranking member of the syndicate, but he always talks like he's had a few good cannolis. Um, yeah, but I was kind of sad that Scully's flaky sister died. I liked her. She was kind of like the prototype for what what's Tony Soprano's sister?
Oh, Janice.
Janice. Everybody's got
Yeah.
a flaky sister. So yes, that was the flaky hippie sister. So she died because Krychek. Well, because Krychek's an asshole, but he's a great asshole. So that moves us right along to Paperclip, which I liked a little bit more. I thought it was a better culmination of everything. Let me just move here. As always, guys, I'm on the X Files wiki to get all the technical info. Oh, this got a 9.2 on IMDb. Now I see
Oh,
that they got
wow.
ratings over here. The last episode had an 8.8, but this was viewed. Oh my God, look at that jump in ratings. So the first episode had 19 million viewers.
Yes.
A whole lot
I
of folks. So
think
X
this
Files was
double
growing
this
and
double the season 2 premiere, I think.
yeah, because the show kept growing. And then this episode had 17 million viewers, written by Chris Carter and directed by Rob Bowman, and premiered on September 29th, 1995. After Mulder and Scully are reunited, they investigate a photograph that seems to connect Mulder's father to experiments that were conducted after World War II, but use scientific knowledge from Nazi Germany. So I'll say this, the Native American episodes were boring, but Chris Carter really wanted to make the first people in Alien Connection. So even I remember watching these episodes first run, and I always thought that the Native American episodes because he makes them boring. Like what I mean, not the episode. Like he makes the Native Americans boring. Like they're so stereotypical, very slow talking, and out in the woods you will find the lights to see what you must see. It's like, come on. I'm sure there must be some Native Americans like that. The ones I've met, they're very chill and they just really like to get drunk.
Mm-hmm.
But, I guess that's just the Chris Carter imagination of what a Native American living in modern society would be like. Um, they're more like that little kid. That little kid was cool, the one with the motorbike that ended up
Yeah.
finding but I get it. He's an elder, but it seems like all of them feel like will close to elder even when they're young. Uh, I like that this episode showed that the cigarette smoking man is not the top dog in the syndicate because they're pissed. They're like, he's
No.
lying
He
out
gets
his ass.
bitched out in this one, man.
I know, and he's lying to say, no, we have those documents. Because remember, this all started with these documents that this guy was able to hack into, like the government, and find all these documents about alien stuff. These documents ended up with Mulder and Scully, or maybe more Mulder than Scully, and they were in Navajo. They were encoded in Navajo. That's where we get the Native American connection. And I love that this showed how cold blooded the cigarette smoking man is in the sense that he would just lie through his teeth. Like, we got this. I got this. Mulder's dead. We have the files, and he didn't have anything. But it's like,
No.
it's all about a game. It's a poker game for him, and he put all the all the chips on the table. So I like that. That's a cool character moment for cigarette smoking man. Um, I don't know what formula for not Pierce Constant. What did these dudes do all day? I think did they visit the lone gunman in this episode?
Yes, they did actually. They're the ones that provide them with the picture of Mulder and the Smoking
Mm,
Man and Deep Throat with the Nazi war criminal.
I got you.
And they're actually
Um,
the ones who identify him. They're like, oh, that's this Nazi scientist who's brought to the U.S. to work with them after the war.
I also said that the old native dude can't use names. Well, that just started to get on my nerves. That's Albert hosting. Um, so then they end up in his hangar. Really cool episode, with all these files. I love that classic X Files shot of showing a bunch of filing cabinets. It's
Yeah,
so antiquated now because probably everything would be on a hard drive, but just endless filing cabinets, and then Scully ends up finding a file with her name on it, and stuff like that is cool. How they're just connect this idea that the government has everything on you. Cool scene in the hangar. Kind of sucks that Mulder gets to see the ship and Scully just sees a bunch of munchkins in the dark, but at
yeah,
least you saw something. Skinner faces down assassins, but gets his ass handed to him again. And we get a little bit more. I've been trying to write every time that they actually explain the whole mythology. I try to write it down because I know that's something that folks sometimes get confused about. What is the whole mythology? What I've gotten so far, one is that the alien bounty hunter doesn't want the human and alien hybrid mixing. So he's coming down to kill whoever is involved in that. And that the humans are trying to create an alien human hybrid, and they're using the smallpox inoculation to get the DNA. So that's what I got from this episode. So the whole, you know, they're just playing into people's fears about vaccination and people getting the government having your DNA, blah, blah, blah. Okay, through the smallpox, they got the DNA, and now we can create some alien hybrid. And Krychek almost gets blown up by in his car by
by
the
the
cigarette,
smoking man. Yeah,
and he gets pissed. That's where we get so it's cool these episodes because they kind of show different sides of our main characters. So now we get Krychek who's gone rogue, and
yes,
rogue.
but the smoking
Mhm.
man does not tell the truth. He says that Krychek was in fact killed in the explosion, and this tape that he got off of Skinner was destroyed in the explosion. And come to think of it, I don't know that that is ever resolved. What actually happens to the tape?
Well,
Krychek says he's keeping it for leverage over them, but I don't recall that issue ever coming up again.
isn't this the one? There's an ending scene where in the end Skinner has the files, and he's won't give it to. No, he doesn't want to give it to what do you call it, to the cigarette smoking man, because they did have the tape, but there's also the files, and I think the files are even more important than the tape, or maybe they had the same information on it. Because I think the tape was just like a hard disk version of the files. Like they must have scanned them or something. So in either case, I know that Skinner. There's the scene at the end where Skinner holds it over the cigarette smoking man's head, and the cigarette smoking man's like, "Nah, I'm taking it anyway." But then Skinner's like, "Well, guess what? I got the native dude. He memorized the whole thing, and if you do anything to Mulder and to Scully or any of us, I'll make sure that he uh, lets it all out." Something like
Yeah,
that,
that's the resolution to it. Like
which was
the
stupid.
yeah, the tape has like all the data, and Skinner has it, but he refuses to make a deal. No, actually, Spender refuses to make a deal with him, and he gets really pissed off. It's one of the few times you see him like really lose his cool. It's like, "Grr," and he actually threatens Skinner. But then Skinner is at the hospital looking over Melissa, who actually didn't die in the previous episode. She spends most of this episode on life support and dies at the end. And Krychek and his buddy come to the hospital to finish the job. He gets into it with them, but they get the jump on him and they get the tape. And then later, Krychek's car explodes. He avoids it, But Spender goes to the syndicate and tells them, yeah, it's all taken care of. Like he's been doing throughout this whole thing. Mulder's dead, no problem. Got the tape, no problem. Then they find out he was lying about everything and he's been fucking up. And they get really pissed. Not only does he not learn from that, but he does it again in this situation. He tells them that, yeah, Krychek is dead and the tape's destroyed and there's no problems. That never gets resolved. But how Mulder and Scully get out of this, because if you'll recall, at the end of season 2, Mulder was fucked. He'd been drugged and he punched out his boss and disappeared. And Scully was looking to go right down with him. So, I mean, they were lucky to even get careers out of this. But they used the whole thing about how the Navajo, not just like the old dude, but like something like 22, the entire tribe, I think, has memorized the contents of the tape from translating it. And yeah, that's when Skinner threatens the smoking man, like, back off and, they won't go public.
All right. So the cigarette smoking man doesn't have the tape at all. Got
No.
burned up. Mm.
No, but that's the thing. I don't think it got burned up because I
I don't
think
think it did either. I think he has it. I
Krychek
think.
had it on this person.
Oh.
And then
Okay.
that we never hear about it again, I don't think.
Yeah, because I'm not sure. I don't recall if the syndicate asked him to destroy the tape or actually give it to him. So I don't know. He got away with that. But it could
Yes.
very much be a loose end. I might have to rewatch this at the end of this episode
And
to
there is another big reveal in this episode too, and that is the extent, which was hinted at in the season 2 finale. That is the extent of Mulder's father's involvement with
mm-hmm.
the cigarette smoking man and Deep Throat back in the day. And it leads to and I didn't really like this aspect of it too much, but it leads to the implication that Samantha's abduction was actually planned by her father, and it was
Mm-hmm.
originally supposed to be him. When they find all those files with the smallpox vaccinations, he finds that Samantha's file had been changed, and it was originally supposed to be for him. And he confronts his mother and asks her if his dad ever came to her and asked her to pick one if she had a favorite. And this is apparently what led to Samantha being abducted instead of Fox.
I got you. I got you. And another thing that's kind of funny in this, I'm here on the wiki page. Somebody mentioned, why did the agents need a code to unlock a giant steel door to gain access to a highly confidential area? Yet they were able to escape out through a wooden door in the back, so anyone walking
Yes.
by could easily gain access to the stuff accidentally if they entered through the rear entrance.
Yeah,
It
what I
also
found funny about that whole thing was the fact that it is this like super ultra top secret facility, and yet there is like nobody there. Just the aliens were watching it, but there wasn't actually from anyone from the government watching this like ultra highly classified top secret facility.
And the fact that the entire syndicate thought that it was a good idea to, like, hey, let's take a picture in front of like this highly sensitive area. Let's take a group shot. Like, you don't want to take group shots if you are the syndicate, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Um, so let me see. I'm looking here. Krychek disappears. He calls the cigarette smoking man and says he's somewhere where you're never gonna find him. And and then he tells, "Oh, look, Pete, this is what happens." I'm reading the transcript here because the cigarette smoking man is having a bit of a they are pissed at him because he was supposed to give him the tape, right? And
Right.
he didn't get it. So then they get a call, and the call is for the cigarette smoking man, and it's Krychek saying, "I'm alive." And then he says, "Yes, good, good. Where are you?" Blah blah blah. And then he says, "Yes, thank you. I'm going to report that to the group." So the lie is that I've just received confirmation that the digital tape containing the stolen files was destroyed in the car bomb explosion, which killed Agent Scully's would-be assassin. So
Yes.
what about Mulder and Scully? I have a meeting with the FBI. They want to make a deal for what? For nothing. There will be no deal. So before that, I think he was getting his ass reamed out for losing the tape. Uh,
Yes.
but then he just lied and said
Yeah, he
it got
said it was
destroyed.
destroyed in the car bomb.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
has a resolution.
But no, it doesn't because Krychek, I think, has the tape on his person.
But do we know that?
Yeah, yeah, because he took it off Skinner. And then the next thing they're getting in the car, but his buddy gets in before him and triggers the car bomb. And Krychek manages to escape because he wasn't in the car when it goes
But
off.
was it like right away? Is the continuity like one after the other? Because he could have just put the tape down in like the glove department or something.
I'm pretty sure he had it on his person.
And then they never bring up the tape again.
Exactly.
Oh, I get what you're saying now. Now you listen to me, you son of a bitch. This man's name is Albert Hosteen. You should remember that because if Agent Mulder and Scully come down with so much as a case of the flu, Albert is prepared to recite chapter and verse, file for file, everything on your precious tape. I like that. But anyway, let's move ahead.
Yes.
So we got the blessing way. How come here it's showing this? Oh, I forgot to change the slide. That's why. So yeah, there's the paperclip. So, but yeah, overall though, good opening to the season. As far as mythology is concerned. And then we get some cameos from some very famous people. We got some Jack Black in DPO, which is the X Files going Stonerville. And this one was written by Howard Gordon, directed by Kim Manners, had 50 million viewers on April 6, 1994. Mulder and Scully investigate the deaths of several people who were struck by lightning. And I dig this one. I mean, it wasn't great, but I kind of dug it just for the cameo with Jack Black and the young kid too. What was his name?
Giovanni Ribisi. Yeah, I barely even noticed Jack Black. But because I'm watching
Yes.
Sneaky Pete right now, which is a pretty good show starring Giovanni Ribisi. Fairly recent too. So I mean, this is like 20 years ago. And yeah, when he's in the opening scene playing his little video game and everything, I was like, that guy looks really familiar. And it's weird because I usually watch them back to back. One episode of The
Mhm.
X Files, one episode of Sneaky Pete. And I'm like, is that Giovanni Ribisi? And yes, indeed. It turns out it is a very young Giovanni Ribisi.
Extremely. I think I remember him for something else, but now I can't remember what. Wasn't Ted 2. Well, apparently he's going to be an Avatar. He was an Avatar. I remember him from something else. But okay, cool stuff. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I was more intrigued by the universe than I was by the actual plot. But I like the fact that they made it a little more three dimensional than some of their lesser Monster of the Week episodes are. Like we get into a bit of the Giovanni Ribisi's character as to why he is the way he is. I mean, besides the fact that he has the ability to channel lightning and electrocute people, one, he's just really fucked in the head. Like you have this one scene where he's just maliciously playing with traffic lights, causing traffic accidents for his own amusement. But there is this deeper story where he has a crush on his former high school teacher who's kind
Mm.
of hot. And he works for her husband's auto repair business. And he has this like sick little fantasy of running off with her. So I thought it was a pretty good portrayal of like a young loser turned psychopath, just with the, even if you took the supernatural element out of it.
Yeah, and the soundtrack to this one is pretty good. I dug Filter. I was into Filter when I was a kid. I like they have a decent live show. I like them live better than on record. Some bands don't do very well in the studio, but they're pretty damn good live bands, and I think Filter was one of them. They kind of had that Nine Inch Nails feel, just a bit more pop. And that song was a big hit. Nice Man, what was it? Hey there, hey man, nice shot. Hey man, nice shot. So a lot of good music in this one. For me, what I took away from it, I said this is the total MTV generation Files. The X Files obviously had a very varied audience, but they were going for that demo. Those 18 to 35-year-olds, and maybe even a bit younger. We talked a little bit about that with that Dihan Verletz, whatever the show where they were in
Yeah,
that school. So every once in a while, you saw the X Files really targeting that younger audience, having the stoners in there, and having these type of storylines about kind of teen delinquents. And I agree with you. I put, you know, not my favorite episode, but it's solid enough. Like it's not bad. It's just like you said, the premise is better than the execution, but it's got some really classic stuff in there at the same time. Uh, of just that teen angst, the teen boy who's just in love with hot for teacher,
right.
and it just kind of falls apart at the end as far as where he takes his adoration for her. I like that the sheriff is a complete asshole to Scully because she doesn't know anything about lightning. They all have to go back and learn more about lightning. It's kind of weird, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that is a classic case of like the small town law enforcement just like
mhm.
totally dissing both of them, but Scully in particular.
Yep. Pete, I remember there's an episode where they talk to a sheriff who won't even talk to her. I- and I thought it was supposed to be in season one, but I don't remember seeing that scene in season one. It's like she'll ask a question to the guy, and he won't even look at her. He'll only talk to Mulder, and then Mulder kind of stands up for her, and I could have sworn it was a very very early season episode, so maybe it's coming up. But it's a scene that I really really remember. Uh, but yeah, it happens, that she does get shafted a little bit for being a woman, and they make that a case. But okay, enough of that. Let's get to a classic, at least for me. I really love this episode. I was so happy to watch it. I thought it was much later in the series, but it's right here at the beginning of season three. Clyde Brookman's final repose. And this one got 15 million viewers on September 15th to 21. I don't know how that works. No, original air date October 13th. Sorry. 1995, written by Dan Morgan, directed by David Nutter. And Mulder and Scully receive help in the investigation of a murder case from a reluctant psychic. It's Peter fucking Boyle. That's just the first thing. It's like,
And he
okay,
won an Emmy for this.
deservedly so. Yeah, he's just great. Great screen presence. If you don't know who that
Yeah.
is, guys, watch Young Frankenstein. And he was
And Taxi Driver.
in Taxi Driver, he was in there. And he was the only funny part, him and that old lady in that show. What was that show? Everybody Loves Raymond.
Okay.
He's the only thing that made that show bearable because I couldn't get into that. But
And not only did he win an Emmy, but this actually won an Emmy for Best Writing in a Drama Series as well.
are you kidding me? I didn't know that. Cool. So
It did.
firsts for the X Files. Uh, everything about this episode clicks. It's right from the start, the bait and switch with the detectives asking for help on the case. With these folks that are a bit out there and they have a bad reputation. Are you sure that these are the folks? And then Mulder and Scully walk in and they're like, "Who are you?" They weren't talking about these two. They were talking about this psychic that was going to come in and help with this murder case. Uh, and then the plot is that there is a guy who does have some psychic abilities, and he's killing off all these psychics in the area. Uh, and Peter Boyle plays this character, Clyde, who's a reluctant psychic because he happens to only see people's death. That's the only thing he can see. He can't really
Yeah.
help with other things. He wishes he could. So he's a reluctant psychic, and he's so sweet. And what starts to happen is that Mulder and Scully are pretty skeptical about the whole idea of psychics, but they start to think, hey, maybe this guy has something. And it's always interesting to me what is what makes Mulder skeptical, like what his limits are as far as the paranormal. Apparently, anything dealing with spirituality or some connection, like with psychics and things like that, he is not into. But he does believe in like voodoo stuff and witchcraft. So it's weird. I don't know where he draws the line as far
Well,
as.
I think he draws the line based on evidence, like scientific evidence. He seems to feel like with UFOs and some of myths and spirits that there's enough evidence to support that this actually exists, and he has the access to this exhaustive database of research on paranormal phenomenon. And usually, when he dismisses something, like we see several times with like satanic cults and stuff. He basically just says like all the research suggests that this is bullshit, and truthfully, most of the research on psychics does suggest it's bullshit. So I think he just, like any good analytical mind does, what he puts his faith in depends largely on how much evidence there is to support it.
Yeah, but there's a few things that don't have as much evidence as others, and yet he puts faith in them. And psychics, there's been plenty of government research on psychics, on remote viewing and things like that. And like I get it from the side of, all right, these psychics that are just on TV trying to make money, obviously they're fake. Because in the end, he does kind of shift his mind, and he believes that Clyde might actually have some psychic ability. So maybe I'm misreading it. Maybe his skepticism was based on the first guy just being a charlatan, but the but then he does actually believe Clyde. But in any case, great episode. Mulder might die of autoerotic asphyxiation. We kind of get a hint of that.
Yes, yes.
and and Scully doesn't die, but she gets a dog, and I like that this dog appears in a later episode. And I
Yeah,
wish,
Queequeg.
oh, quick way, and I wish that they would have used this idea of Scully not dying as, I don't know, something within the mythology. Like, it's kind of a throwaway line, but it would have. I don't know. I wish they would have done something with it and something more interesting. Either she gets abducted and doesn't come back, or something happens to her that would allow the character to, you know, within the show's reality, live on forever. Almost like Captain Cisco at the end of Deep Space Nine. He goes and joins the Prophets. It would be kind of cool if they would have done something for Gillian Anderson to be forever alive. She doesn't die. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, great episode. You can talk about it.
Yeah, no, he said pretty much everything. It is a good episode. It's not really a comedy episode, but it has humor, and it kind of reminds me a bit about of the types of stories you used to see on Alfred Hitchcock Presents or The Twilight
Mhm.
Zone, where it didn't take itself very seriously, but there was some element of deadpan humor to it, but it dealt with a pretty heavy duty theme, which is like fate and inevitability. There's this one scene where Mulder asks Boyle, um, if the future is already written, then why do anything? And he's like, well, exactly. Now you're getting it. I think is his exact line.
Mhm.
So yes, something about, is there such a thing as predestiny? Is there any way we can change the future if we can see it? And the message that the show kind of leaves us with is no, because pretty much everything goes the way that Clyde expects it to, in turning it, including his own death and the flavor of the pie. There's a bit where
Mhm.
he can see through the killer's eyes as he's sneaking up on Mulder, and
Mhm.
he gets so obsessive over whether or not it's cream or banana cream pie. But yeah, everything goes the way that Clyde expects it to, and he kind of wants to die because it's a shitty gift to be psychic. But the only thing, he can't win the lottery. He tries, but the only thing he can do is see how people are going to die, and it's kind of a useless curse for him. So
I
it
know.
had
So there's that
humor.
melancholy aspect to it. I was reading here
Yeah,
Sputniks, whatever. I can never say this guy's name. Frank Sputnitz. He said that where Darren Morgan, because Darren Morgan, Glenn, and Morgan, Darren are the ones that write the more kooky, kind of funny episodes uh, that also are able to turn the lens on, turn the lens on the actual show, and critique the show and kind of poke fun at the show. And this is one. I mean, Humbug was a good, funny episode. I think that was the first one that said, okay, the X Files can do comedy, even though it wasn't like ha 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 ha, extremely funny, but there was that little wryness to it. In this one, it just took it to the next level where they were able to put in a depth with the funny at the same time. And for me, it's a really important episode. Chris Carter here said the same thing more or less. He says, um, he was blown away when he saw it. It's a great uh, character piece, terrific performance by Mr. Boyle. It for me took the show to a new level because it was a complete surprise to everybody. Nobody, you know, they don't get to see the episode fully if they're not working on it. I imagine maybe they get to see dailies or stuff like that, but they don't really know what they're gonna see till it airs. So there's a maturity to this episode that had been lacking in season one and season two, as good as they are. That also for me takes the show to the next level. And I think it made more guest stars think about appearing, and knowing that hey, these writers are gonna give us some meaty parts. We're not just gonna be the weird monster of the week. We can be just this different character who's going through changes. In Mulder and Scully, they're more peripheral pieces in this story. It's really Peter
yeah,
Boyle's story. So real courageous episode for the X Files, and really one of the best. One second. No, no, no. All right. Anyway, let's move ahead to the episode called The List. The
yes,
List. And this is a much darker episode
yeah.
coming off of this. That's another thing, man. You know, if you watch these first run, you're like, oh, X Files, so cute and funny. Wrong answer. So this episode came out on October 20th to 16 million viewers. So look at these ratings. They just kind of
Yeah.
stayed at that 15 to 17 million mark. So the show is really finding its groove around the season three. Written by Chris Carter, directed by Chris Carter, which may explain some of the issues I had with it. A man about to be executed by electric chair vows to return to kill five men who wronged him in prison. It had a 7.3 rating on IMDb. What do you think of this one?
Um, story wise, it was pretty much literally about as by the numbers as you can get. It's like the premise for a really forgettable low budget horror movie. But if I liked anything about it, again, solid cast. You had JT Welsh in there as the warden. The executed felon was Badja Jola, who's appeared in a lot of really small parts in film and television. He's just really distinctive. He's got this like really deep voice. But yeah, the high point for this one really was the gore. There's some pretty nasty,
Yes.
not outright blood and guts gore, but they find like a head in a paint can, and it's infested with maggots, real maggots. Apparently, they use real maggots for that. So yeah, the premise is pretty blah, but you gotta love it for the guest stars and the gore.
I agree, man. Those things were pretty disgusting because apparently, like once this, like was it like they would decompose quickly or something, right? Like the I don't know, it was disgusting. But in either case, the list. Nietzsche is going to the chair. That was pretty intense. That first opening scene. But I gotta say this, guys. And again, tonight I'm sounding like those dudes from Vulture. Although we gotta get see if they have any season three episodes on their list, on their very woke list of bad episodes. But man, black folks in prison again, Chris Carter. What's the deal? Do better, the X Files. You know, it's a show that doesn't have a lot of representation of people of color, and then when it does have episodes where the leads are black or Hispanic or Native American, they all fall into the very stereotypical roles. You know, I think there's an episode with some Latinos that's about the chupacabra, and if I recall, they're all living in this kind of uh, border town, and it's like a stereotypical like illegal or maybe yes, maybe not illegal alien. Uh, that you can get, when you get your Mexicans. So X Files not that good at writing diverse characters, and so that just kind of stood out to me when I watched it, and but I still like the episode though. I mean, I just kind of sometimes we got to go with the old, hey man, it's a product of its time, you know. The electric chair scene is pretty fucking intense, especially for like broadcast TV to show that. Vengeance from the Grave, we've seen this done that before with the X Files, but they did it well. They did it well. I like how they had the Silence of the Lambs again, vibe with Scully walking through the prison and all the men kind of staring at her. It's very,
Right.
it's echoes of Starling when she goes to see Hannibal Lecter for the first time. And I agree with Pete. I put here pretty nasty death makeups, pretty fucked up. But I thought it was a pretty good revenge episode. Given what it is, given given the fact that it's just territory that the X Files has treaded before a few times. Revenge from the grave. What was this? So that first season episode, right, with the boss that's killing people to protect his
Yeah.
secretary or something. Like the X Files has done the revenge from the grave a bunch of times, or even the episode with the guy from Candyman.
Tony Todd.
Tony, yeah, Tony Todd, another one. I mean, he's not dead, but it's this whole idea of
Yeah.
just getting revenge for something way back then in a very supernatural way. So nothing new as far as that, but like Pete said, by the numbers, but not bad, not
It
terrible.
did have a nice little ending though, because Nietzsche actually he does get his revenge.
Yes, he
Basically, they
does.
they they pin it on the correction officer that was having an affair with Nietzsche's wife, and so Mulder and Scully are like, okay, that's that, and they're packing up to go home. But it turns out there's one more person left on the list, and as they're driving away, Mulder's like, it just doesn't make sense that he would be the killer because he was on duty when in another part of the prison when another murder happened. And then the last scene, we see the warden driving by them, and Nietzsche appears in his rearview mirror, and his car goes off the road, and Nietzsche completes the list. So
I
it
know.
was
I
kind of
like
a
that.
nice little ending to a nothing episode.
No, yeah. Again, it's like for a by the numbers, it's a strong by the numbers because there are some ones
Yeah.
that aren't as strong. So I dug it. I dug it. I dug it. So to finish out for tonight, we got too shy, and this one falls on that in that category of episodes that I thought were way deeper into the series. That episodes that I like that are way deeper. And it's right here at the beginning of season one, 14 million viewers, 14.8 million viewers, and it came out November 3rd. It was 7.7 rating on IMDb. Several women disappear after meeting someone in internet chat rooms. Um, Now, this episode I really like. I really like, although, it shows its age just because of like the computer stuff and how people date
Yeah.
now. Like it's Tinder this and Tinder that, all the dating apps. But it's not so dated that you can't understand that, okay, some people would meet online to do this. But I just love the premise of it. Like, even though I don't know if I get it, I guess the guy had some sort of like fat deficiency. So
Yes.
he needed to suck the fat.
Yes.
To suck who writes this stuff? Jeffrey Flaming wrote this one, and David Nutter directed. So he would suck the fat out of these chubby girls that he would take out on dates.
Yeah.
So here are my notes. I said, dating can get messy. Sucking fat from fat girls. uh,
Yeah, and this is another one where the gore is pretty up there. Like
I know,
when
I
you see
love it.
the aftermath of his nastiness, man, like,
I
he does
know.
a number on them. Apparently, having this fat sucked out of you is pretty messy.
It's fucking disgusting and it's great. I love the autopsy scenes. Oh, and I love the sexist detective in the autopsy. I'm not being sexist. I'm just being honest. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. This is another one. Yeah, where he tells Scully that he's not entirely comfortable having a woman working on a case that might be sex crimes. Like, yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah. Don't take it personally.
And so Mr. Encanto is the killer. I really good bad guy who is played by Timothy Carhart, which I don't know him from anywhere else, but he was, just played the part perfectly. He hid out in his little apartment. His landlord had a crush on him. Oh, he was in Star Trek, apparently. I just saw a picture of him here in Star Trek. He was, played bit parts in Desperately Seeking Susan, and Ghostbusters, and Working Girl. So he did a lot of stuff in the 80s all the way through. He was in 24, Tom and Louise, The Hunt for Red October. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but probably just little bit parts. But anyway, um, but he was great in this. He was just kind of leave me alone. The landlord wants him to read his poetry. She's got a blind daughter. She ends up getting killed, and the blind daughter can smell his perfume. That's how they kind of figure out that it's him. Uh, But meanwhile, he's still trying to get dates, man. He needs these fat girls. And the best
Yeah,
scene is when he goes, Pete, when he goes to like, he he set up a date with the chubby girl, and then she flaked out at the last
so
minute. So
he's got to pay for it, man.
he's got to pay for it, and then
Yeah,
he finds the one chubby prostitute. I was like, oh
yeah.
yes, yeah.
But prostitutes don't kiss, and that's fucks him up.
I know. So he has to force
He has to force
himself.
himself on her. Yeah,
I know he took it to the next level, man. There's so much wrong in this episode, but I love it. I
yeah.
love it.
I think I actually recognized the area where that prostitute scene was shot. It's like,
Oh
I think
boy, I
it's like
know.
around Quebec Street in Vancouver, because it's like
Oh.
underneath a SkyTrain station.
So I gave this one 4 stars. I dug it. It's solid. It does have a kind of a quickish ending, you know, like we do get some solid karate from Scully. But why would you leave a gun
Yes,
on the floor? Because, you know, he does finally get the date with the fat girl, you know, and she sees on the computer that he's the killer, and he tries to attack her, and he starts to, and she doesn't die. And I'm like, he was with her for a long time. At least it seemed way longer than it took for him to suck the fat out of the other girls. So it seemed like just kind of plot armor for the last victim. And then Mulder runs out of the apartment thinking like because he sees somebody run, and then it ends up it's a black kid again. Of course, it has to be a black kid who is like the spray painting the wall. And he's like, "Hey, Mister, don't shoot." And Mulder's like, "Ah." So that was kind of weird. It's like, wait, you know, you think Mulder would have noticed that there's a teenage boy running versus like a 30 to 40-year-old man, but whatever. That gives us plot armor to get Scully alone in the bathroom, and she gets attacked by Mr. Encanto, and she does some Scully karate, but she gets saved at the end of the day by the fat girl who should have been dead, but she's got a bunch of slime on her. I guess she must have been
there is
really.
kind of a Silence of the Lambs parallel in this episode too, in that you remember that Buffalo Bill was always hunting fat chicks too because he needed to loosen their skin, his woman suit.
I
So
know.
yeah, I think that yeah, the villains kind of have that in common.
Just that this guy didn't ask to rub any lotion. He
Yeah,
just
yeah,
he went
he had his own lotion.
in his own lotion. Oh boy. But yeah, it's like I can't imagine this episode airing today without having a bunch of women's groups just totally like shut down production. But I think that's why I kind of like the episode. It's just so wrong on so many levels, but well written enough and interesting enough until the end. The end was kind of quickish that I dig it. What about you?
Yeah, well, one thing I really liked about this episode, besides the fact that it was so icky, is that I always like the episodes where you kind of feel for the victims, like they're not just there for the express purpose of being victimized. Like
Hmm.
this one main chick that he's trying to score with, and he stands him up the first time and winds up kind of being responsible for his capture at the end. I mean, she's so pathetic, but you could tell like she's just lonely. She doesn't have good social skills, and this guy like just totally charms her, gets her to put her guard down. And you know, even though she is kind of a pathetic cat lady, I can't remember if she has a cat, but she's just like she's the sort of person you would expect to have a cat.
Yes.
Yeah, but you can tell she's got low self esteem. She's lonely, and she's just being set up not only for disappointment but death. Contrasting that, you have the landlady who's totally smitten with this guy, and he wants absolutely nothing to do with her because she's not fat enough. And her curiosity and interest in kind of leads to her demise and you know her poor daughter being left orphan. So yeah, I kind of felt for these two characters. The one, gets doesn't die. She manages to avoid her grisly fate and get some payback, but you can tell that she's really hurt by all of it. And at the end, you get Incantanto's confession, where he basically says, "Look, I have to do this to survive. I got what I needed from them, and in return, I made them feel special." And Scully's just like disgusted by the fact that he didn't just prey on their bodies, but he preyed on their sense of self worth and their sense of hope. She almost seems to see that as the bigger of the two victimizations. So
Yeah.
thematically, pretty good, good characters, pretty icky, all around, solid episode.
And does how's he gonna keep his because we had mentioned before that usually the X-Files don't end on with them ever catching anybody. I think like in season one, Toombs was an exception. I can't remember anybody in
Yeah,
season two that they actually were able to catch and prosecute.
they caught the they caught the blood sucking worm.
Oh yeah, well, how are they gonna prosecute
Oh
the blood?
no! But then he
He did it.
escaped. Then he escaped.
Yeah, he
Yeah, he
escaped.
escaped.
And Skinner was like,
Yeah,
"How are we gonna prosecute the newt, or whatever, the
yeah,
fluke?"
yeah.
Uh,
They got Giovanni Ribisi actually in the Lightning Boy episode, but
which
there was
episode?
the Lightning Boy episode, the one we just reviewed.
Oh,
And with
okay.
Yeah, yeah, but there was the implication that it was going to be impossible to charge him with everything because everyone died from lightning attacks. So yeah, they arrested him and charged him, but the local lawman's like, it's going to be hard to make this stick.
To make a case, yeah. So this is one of the few exceptions, but it just begs the question: how's this dude gonna survive? Like, are they like in?
Yeah,
Couldn't he just suck the fat out of like a pig or a cow? I don't know. They don't really explain the how the mechanisms of his whole fat thing. Unlike Toombs, Toombs makes sense. He needs to come out of hibernation, get some livers, go back in. Uh, so I think that takes it down just a couple notches because of that aspect of it. But otherwise, a really great episode. Although it had a pretty low rating on IMDb, which makes me wonder if it wasn't due to uh, folks just being uptight with the themes in it. Let me see here.
I don't think so because shows that get low ratings, people don't. It's usually because of something that's happened previously, because you don't know what the content is until you've actually watched it.
No, I'm saying ratings, not like viewer ratings. I'm saying just
Oh
rating,
yeah,
like
like
why was it
IMDb type
rated?
ratings. Yeah,
Well, there's only 10 users that reviewed it. One gave it 10 stars. Another one gave it 8/10. Enjoyable gross. Somebody gave it 7 out of 10. It's okay. This episode was written back in 1995 when the internet was still in the beginning stages. I got mostly good reviews. They got a lot of 10s, just a couple 7s, which I guess is what brought it down a little bit. All right, guys. It's late, and we're pretty much done for tonight. Retro reviews of The X-Files, Season 3, Episodes 1 through 6. We'll be back next Thursday with more. But before we go, as usual, let's do our skip
yes.
and watch. And The Blessing Way. Is this a skip or a watch for you?
Oh, absolutely. Watch.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was a little bored with it, but it fits so well into what comes next. So I say watch. And then Paperclip.
Watch definitely. This whole three-part story is pretty essential viewing.
I agree. I agree. It's one of the better mythology episodes. So definite watch, and I really like this one. DPO.
It's a good episode, and I particularly like the retro guest stars in this one. But is it really all that necessary to watch? If you're going to skip something this season, this would be a good early skipping point. Good episode, but you won't be missing much.
I agree with Pete. Like, aside from, wow, look, it's a very young Jack Black, you know, it's okay. It's like an okay episode, but if you skip it, you're not missing anything. Clyde Brookman.
Yeah, if for no other reason than it's like won 2 Emmys. I mean, that's pretty landmark for a show like The X Files. So yes, definitely, it's a deep episode, well acted, well written. It has some humor, but also has some darkness. Kind of sums up a little bit of everything of what The X Files is all about.
That scene where he's like seeing his own death. He's like sitting in a motel room with Scully talking about his own, like, and you get to see him decompose in the grass. Yeah, they went kind of deep, man. It was a lot of levels to this episode. There's a lot of rewatchability in this one because of that. You can watch it one time just for the humor, the next time for the depth, the darkness, or just a plain old X-Files story. So definite watch, and this will probably show up at the end of our season 3 for the recap as probably one of the top ones. And the list.
Yeah, definite skip for this. It's pretty ordinary, except for the gore.
I agree. If you're trying to get into the X Files, this isn't the episode that will get you into it. Thought it was solid. It's not bad. I think all the seasons we've done so far, this is probably the strongest first 6 episodes. But I'd say skip, like Pete. And Too Shy.
Yeah, Too Shy is definitely a watch, not just for the great villain, but for the depth of the story. Again, strong themes, and just for being downright fucking nasty and gross. If you want to watch a
Yeah,
horror show, I mean, one of the things you're watching for is nasty, and this definitely has some pretty nasty vibes.
I agree with Pete. I remember this episode when we got into rewatching the X Files. I was like, I can't wait to get to that fat sucking episode. But again, I thought it was like season 4, season 5, and I'm like, oh shit, it's right here at the start, and it's one that I remember from way back in first run. Uh, there are the elements that have aged it with the type, because of how people internet date nowadays. It's very different, but not enough where you lose any of the the episode's impact. And everything Pete said, you do end up carrying, especially for her. Poor thing, she's such a mess. So definitely watch. This one is a definite watch as far as monster of the week. This week, mythology won out. Usually, for me, the mythology ones uh, get on the shit stick. But this week, I think I picked more mythology than Monster of the Week for watches. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Check us out on Monday nights. We talk about life here in Brazil. We'll be on next Monday, hopefully with a guest. She did kind of confirm, but I need to talk to her again to double check. 10 p.m. Brazil time. Uh, So I don't know what time that'll be where you are because times have changed now. And Monday nights, we also talk movies every other Monday, so check that out. Maybe our next one will be after we watch King Kong versus Godzilla, or the other way around, actually, right? Godzilla versus King Kong. So, Pete, we got to be on that. We got to be on some King Kong action.
Yes, yes. Hopefully, we will get a theatrical release here.
I hope so too. I'm gonna rewatch the original. I love the original. And there's two
Okay.
versions of the original, by the way. There's the American and Japanese version. They're very different. But
So I've
just to warm,
heard. Yeah.
yes, just to warm up for the new one, because the original is just classic, classic. Anyway, until next time, y'all. have a good night.
Cheers. Trust no one.
Yeah.